Welcome back to AgLife. My name is Camille Lambert, and today I'm here to talk about soil testing. I've got two of UK's soil specialists that work for the university, and they're going to give us some basic information on how to take a good soil test, some economics to it, and especially with the tight times coming, just some good overall information.
Well, the first thing is getting a good sample, because the recommendations are only as good as the sample that's submitted. So, you go out into the field and you want to do it the same time every year. Spring or fall doesn't make much difference as long as you're always taking it the same time of year every time you go back out to sample, because you can't compare a fall sample to a spring sample. And then the other is the depth. You want to sample to the depth for the crop that you're going to be submitting that sample for. And this is the same for homeowners as well. The soil testing lab where you're going to submit that sample is going to have a recommendation, no-till 4-inch sample and a tilled field 6 to 8-inch sample. And so you want to know the depth, and you want to always go at the same time of year. Me personally, I like to sample in the fall because that gives me plenty of lead time to get my products ordered for the next spring.
A part that's sometimes overlooked is the depth. They're thinking, oh, as long as I'm going out in the field and getting some soil, that's good enough.
So that sample result is calibrated to a specific depth. So if you haven't sampled at the depth recommended for your crop, and your cropping system, tilled or no-tilled, and whatever specific crop, then the results are no good.
So whenever you're taking a soil test, the results that you get are only as good as the sample that you took. What are some basic tips that you can give people to get a good sample to submit?
Camille, we want that sample to be representative of the area. There's approximately 2 million pounds of soil in an acre furrow slice, and our recommendations are based on about a teaspoon of soil. So if you have areas that are anomalies in that area, you want to make sure to not include those. So if you have an area that has received a high rate of manure, or an old tobacco patch or old garden that isn't really representative of the rest of that field, you want to probably stay away from that. And the drainage issues might come into play a little bit. Old fence rows. A lot of fence rows have been pushed out in recent years. Just because there's no fence there doesn't mean the other side of that old fence row is going to be the same as the field that is in question.
I know that the university has kind of always gotten the rap that we are more conservative on our soil recommendations than other soil testing labs. What would you all say about the upcoming years in soil testing?
So, it comes down to the philosophy of the person making the recommendations. The actual analysis, the sample analysis itself, is generally the same across labs. Here in Kentucky, we use what's called a Malic-3 extraction. It's very good for this region. We've done a lot of calibration and correlation with it, but the recommendation system we use is really a hybrid between what we call a build and maintain and a sufficiency. So some private lab recommendations that may differ from University of Kentucky's, they may be higher because they're on a build and maintenance schedule more than sufficiency. This is the time when soil sampling, first of all, is going to pay for itself, because that sample is cheap compared to the cost of fertilizer, and grain prices are down. And you want to apply what you need. Don't cut back in P and K because grain prices are down, because you're going to end up losing more money because your yields are going to be lower. So, you want to follow recommendations, but I would argue that you want to follow conservative recommendations, so you know that you're at least putting in what you need to grow that crop and maximize yields, but you don't want to be putting on any extra this kind of cycle when we're down on grain prices.
A soil sample here in Henderson County, it's $6.50 for one sample, and you know, on a farm you may send a couple samples, so it's relatively cheap, and it'll end up saving you more money if you know what you need to put down rather than just kind of blanket spreading, not really knowing what you need. Stay tuned, we'll be back with more AgLife.